stuff. And then he has one Soul of Innistrad.
Yeah, I like it.
The Boom Boom.
6/6.
Yep, 6 mana, 6/6. Beat it.
Can't.
Souls, they're going to get some play. Probably not, I mean, almost certainly not right now, but, you know, once rotation happens, I expect to see a lot of those. These cards are powerful. They're not Titans, but that's a good thing, I think.
I agree with that.
Is it Packrat time? It is. So Erik Smith is put to the test right away, but his Young Planeswalkers decks, they have a lot of 2-mana removal spells. I don't know how many Erik's has, but most of these decks have a lot. There's amazing.
Erik has 8, so I think he is a favorite to have one on turn 2.
So get that Packrat out of here. He does pass that test.
Yeah, Sean does have a backup Packrat, though.
But he elects not to play one.
Yeah, and I kind of like that. It's like the first one you just run out there, but the second one, it's kind of dangerous. You know, if that's your main threat, you're probably better off waiting until turn 5 to play it and make a rat, and it's really hard for them to actually kill all of them at that point.
Temple of Deceit is the land that McCafferty will play. Top card does go to the bottom, still representing Hero's Downfall. You have to wonder if he knows what he's up against here, as there is a Xenagos.
I think the jig is probably up at this point, you know?
Chances are. Smith going to play a Temple of Malice. Take a look at the top card here. I imagine he's made a Satyr token. We're just waiting for one from our table spotter. There it is.
Okay.
And it is attacking. There's a Hero's Downfall to get that off the table. Erik Smith wouldn't forget.
No, I didn't know if he played the Temple before he made a token and gave Sean a window to actually downfall it. That would have been pretty interesting.
Okay, gotcha. Before making the token.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of scared of.
I think we're going to play the Packrat minigame again now.
Yeah. Packrat versus Satyr token, who wins?
Anybody's game.
Yeah.
Smith is going to untap all those lands, take a draw here. Now there's a copy of Nissa. Now this will be the first time that we have really seen this on camera this weekend. I know you're a big fan of this card.
I like her. She's good. The one thing that you have to be careful of that I was not very careful of last weekend was that your land doesn't get haste.
Yeah.
Got to watch out for that one.
It's not Koth.
It is not Koth. Also does not untap the land, but I think everyone knows that. It's just like, you know, maybe if Erik put a stomping ground into play and he's like, oh, I'll just activate this one. It's like, doesn't work out the way you want it to.
He's got plenty of Temple of Malices to spare.
Yeah, that's true.
So there is Nissa Worldwaker. It's going to move up, of course. Going to turn Temple of Malice into a 4/4. Now, again, what's important here, the land becomes an elemental creature with trample. So, you know, there's some text on there that, you know, you may think doesn't really matter very much, but the fact the land does have trample, that's important.
Yeah, trample is a pretty big game. And Erik is just going to sit back here trying to defend his Nissa, which I like.
Discarding a Nightveil Spectre is what Sean will do. So a rat token will be coming in. So we'll have 2/2/2 rats.
For now.
Yeah.
They get out of control pretty quick.
McCafferty will draw cards, copy of Thoughtseize. You can see a Mutavault and a Grey Merchant in his hand as well. Those are the 3 cards that he's working with here on his 6th turn of the game. He will start off by casting a Thoughtseize. Smith's hand, we will see in just a moment. Sylvan Caryatid goes to the bin, 2 Stomping Grounds are what's left. So his draws are going to be pretty good moving forward.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense now that he is so protective of his Nissa. That is the only gas that he has currently. So it is very much that against Packrat right now.
McCafferty again with a Mutavault and a Grey Merchant in his hand. Could deploy Grey Merchant this turn if he wants to. But it looks like he's more concerned with being able to make some very large rats. With 2 Mutavaults out there and a card in his hand, that's not hard for him to do.
Yeah, I mean, what's better? A Grey Merchant that drains your opponent for 4, or a 3/3 that pumps your other creatures is potentially a 5/5 with 2 Mutavaults.
Give me the 5/5.
Yeah, 5/5 sounds good.
That's the thing here for Smith is he doesn't really have very good blocks. I mean, he could make a double block here, but I mean, that's not even exciting.
Yeah, then the other ret gets through, kills your Nissa, and you've killed a Packrat. You have a Satyr left over. That's fine, but not exactly what you want.
We saw him cast some Mortars early.
Yeah.
Does he have more of those?
He has 3 total in his main deck.
Okay. So he might just be working his way towards maybe trying to overload one of those things. Here's a double block. But this isn't the first time that we've seen Packrat stir up some trouble, so.
Yeah, it was in play for a turn, and it's already kind of out of control. We see, like, chump blocks effectively, and it's killing Planeswalkers and doing crazy things with Mutavaults. Just does not take very much.
I'm going to hate when this rotates. That's not true. I think everyone's going to be really happy. Smith draws a card for the turn. Did get a great look at it. It's a copy of Read the Bones.
So Read the Bones. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier where people are kind of like, moving away from Read the Bones. It is kind of slow, but it is perfect in those situations.
And unfortunately for Erik, as he scryed 2 cards to the bottom, his draws were 2 more lands.
Yeah. At least he does have a temple to scry a little bit, but definitely not what you're looking for when you're facing down some Packrats.
These Packrats don't take long to close the game out. That's what makes this deck so scary. And you said this kind of when we talked about a little bit earlier when we watched Jared play against Tom. This is a deck that has removal and some discard stuff like that, but it's not a control deck.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a mid-range, kind of slides towards aggro a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think the people that generally do well with the Black Devotion decks are the ones that lean towards taking a very aggressive stance with the deck. And like they mulligan in that way, they play that way.
A Packrat activation going to discard a swamp, so another rat's going to come into play. We'll see if Mutavaults will get activated. Doesn't look like they will. So Satyr Token bites the dust. Smith is going to untap. He'll take a draw here. It's another land. I believe he's holding 4 of them. He'll play a Temple of Abandon, and that top card's going to go to the bottom. It feels like one of the faults of this deck is that this can happen. You're scrying from Read the Bones and the lands, hope to mitigate that, and you're hoping that, your Planeswalkers get to go active a couple of times, but
yeah.
He is flooding out pretty badly here. The Temples aren't really making life much better. There's a Dreadbore. That's a little late to the party. Play a Stomping Ground, pass the turn back.
Yeah, I mean, Erik has 24 lands in his deck, 8 creatures whose job is basically just to make mana. The likelihood is like kind of high when your deck is over half mana sources that games will kind of end in that way. It is just like he really does have to try and milk the cards that he has for maximum potential, which is why he was trying to protect that Nissa.
Game number 1 goes to Sean McCafferty with Black Blue Devotion over. Erik Smith playing Jund Planeswalkers. We will take a look at the sideboards now. And since Erik is on the play, we will start there.
Have another copy of Rakdos' Return, 2 Duress, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Mistcutter Hydra, 2 Doomblade, 2 Scavenging Ooze, 2 Anger of the Gods, 2 Magma Spray. So not a ton of help here. The Rakdos' Return is definitely something that Erik should look into bringing in. It is generally pretty good in this matchup. Other than that, there are things like Duress and Thoughtseize that you could bring in, but they're okay and not great, And then everything else seems to be hedging against creature decks or something like Mono Blue Devotion. So
3 Doomblade, 2 Lifebane Zombie, 2 Duress, 2 Stain the Mind, 2 Negate of Rika's Cure, 2 copies of Drown in Sorrow, and 1 Erebos God of the Dead. Before we talk about what McCafferty can bring in here, he actually does have hate against Rabble Red and 2 Drown in Sorrow and a Rika's Cure.
Yeah, he does.
Not a ton, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Duress, I think, is an obvious inclusion. Negate is kind of an interesting inclusion. I think you're going to bring it in because it lines up well against Planeswalkers, but I can definitely see situations where, you've got your Negate and then they slide their Planeswalker underneath it.
Yeah, that's certainly true, but it's not like he's just relying on Negate. He does have things like Hero's Downfall and creatures that can attack. I think Negate is pretty important in this matchup just to... in that game, if he had a Negate, he would be able to protect his Packrats from Mizzium Mortars, that type of thing. It's it allows you to get a threat, potentially start attacking their Planeswalkers, and then also protect that threat from something that might come off the top of the deck. Whereas something like Thoughtseize or Duress, while good cards in the matchup, aren't going to be able to do that.
Do we like Lifebane Zombie as just an attacker here? I don't... Erik has some number of Chandras,
He has 2 Chandras main deck. And, certainly Sean doesn't know that. But that is a card that a lot of these Jund decks play, and that is probably the worst feeling in the world, to play Lifebane Zombie and see that they have a Chandra.
Miss, see the Chandra, and be oh, my turn was a waste.
Yeah.
My creature's just going to die.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to bring that in or not. I mean, there's Erebos as well. I'm not sure if he wants that card in this matchup. The games do go a little bit longer. He probably has some life points to play with.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, Sean definitely has a lot of options, and it all depends on what he thinks matters in the matchup. So Gray Merchant is a card that is not super effectual, you can't expect a deck that has 8 removal spells to, allow you to have a bunch of creatures in play to take advantage of that,
So a couple weeks from now, Mr. Thompson, we are going to have not 1, but 2 open series in the same weekend.
That's fantastic.
That's a lot of magic.
It is.
I don't know if I can handle that. Well, I don't have to because I have the weekend off. Yes. Yes. Patrick and Matthias Hunt will bring you guys coverage from New Jersey. It's only fitting that the show in New Jersey Patrick has to do.
Yeah.
If we're going to add an opening schedule, Patrick, you have to go do it.
Yeah.
There. So we'll be in Edison, New Jersey for that one, and we'll also be in Indianapolis. No coverage in Indy, coverage in Jersey, brought to you again by Patrick Sullivan and Matthias Hunt. It's our first time doing a double Open Series weekend, so it should be a lot of fun. It's also the weekend before Grand Prix Orlando, so we're going to be having a lot of events here, 2 of them to cover, so we got to split our staff, across 2 tournaments, and then all of us have to go down to Orlando for that. So
yeah,
it's going to be a pretty crazy 2 weeks.
I love it. I mean, it is kind of sad when, say, I was in Indy and there's a tournament happening in Jersey, and it's like, yeah, you get to watch, but it's like, man, I really wish I could be playing also with these guys.
Yeah.
Now you have that chance.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Well, looking forward to watching it from home. A Temple of Abandon here for Erik. Temple of Deceit for Sean to kick things off for game number 2. Look, I don't get a lot of weekends off. I'm going to enjoy it.
I understand, man. And Patrick has his weekend off this weekend, so.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm going to Australia
Yeah.
or anything. I'm just going to be sitting home in Seattle. A Scavenging Ooze there for Smith before McCafferty does pass the turn back.
Yeah, Scavenging Ooze coming out of Erik's sideboard. That's an interesting one.
A little more pressure.
Yeah.
Maybe McCafferty boarded out most of his removal spells that aren't Hero's Downfall. I could see that happening, because now here's a Read the Bones. Read the Bones looks beautiful on this turn, where he's not underneath any pressure. And he's like taking a turn off, yes, but he's also helping his draws a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, last weekend when I had Ooze in my sideboard of my green-black deck, I brought it in like the mirror-ish matches, like the other black Devotion decks. And it was good. It's just kind of strange to see it coming from the Jund Planeswalker deck. But it has a lot of utility in a lot of matchups, and that's why it's a good sideboard card, you know?
Yeah, Erik's draw this game is much better than the last one. Scavenging is going to come across in for 2 more points of damage. Now here's a Courser of Crewfix. So now the top card, we'll see a Nissa World Waker. That's a real one. Does Erik have a land? He's got 2 of them.
Yeah, he's got some options.
He's going to play Blood Crypt tapped, gain a life, pass it back.
Yeah, not seeing a land on top is kind of unfortunate, but it's also not the worst thing when you see a Nissa, you know?
Hero's Downfall is going to take care of Courser. Nissa is going to get turned back down. McCafferty is going to draw a card. Again, you can see 2 negates in his hand right now. He's going to play a Swamp, just pass the turn back. So now he's able to counter a Planeswalker. Now he's going to leave that 2-mana up, because I imagine he's scared of that Nissa that's on top of the deck.
Right.
Smith is just going to play a Temple of Abandon. Look at the top card here. And he can serve in for 2 and activate the Ooze and make it 3 if he wants. And it looks like that's what he's going to do. He'll gain a life in the process, of course, and go up to 19. But 3 damage will come across, and McCafferty's going to go down to 13, and Smith's just going to pass the turn back. He's got spells to cast. We'll see how long Sean wants to keep up this negate shield.
And if you're Erik, do you expect Sean to have negate in this spot?
I think yes, because if you're familiar with Black Blue Devotion, you know they have access to negate from Jared's win 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Did he actually see a Watery Grave in game 1, though? That's interesting, because it could have just been a temple, and he could think that he's on mono black.
That's true. That's actually true.
Oh, this is very cute.
This is Stain the Mind?
Yeah, so Stain the Mind, naming Nissa, which he knows that Erik has in his hand.
So now those are all gone.
Every Nissa's gone. The shields are down, though, and Erik has a Rakdos' Return.
Yeah. So here is basically our new Cranial Extraction-esque effect. 5 mana, only a single black, can convoke it. Name a non-land card, search target player's graveyard, hand, and library for a number of those cards, and they're gone forever. So Nissa World Waker, Courser giving away that information, those are gone now. So can Scavenging Ooze and a large Rakdos' Return get the job done? We're going to find out. How do you feel about bringing in a Cranial Extraction-esque effect like this in this matchup?
I personally might not, but I totally see the allure of, like, this Jund deck. You know, we were talking about how easy it is to flood, how prone it is to flooding, and it is very much threat light, you know? So now that his Nissas are gone, it's kind of nice for him that he brought the Scavenging Ooze in, then he actually has his threat. But he would be left with, like, Xenagos and some Chandras, maybe, to deal the final points of damage, and that's not super reliable against a deck full of removal spells. So it could be very easy that, like, Sean is just on the plan of, like, I will stay in the mind, get rid of his biggest threat, counter and deal with the other threats, and, like, he's just going to draw 10 cards in a row that don't deal me damage, and then, you know, I'll find a way to win from there.
An attack for 3, going to put McCafferty down to 6. Here's a big old Rakdos' Return. That'll be for 4, so Sean gets to keep 1 card. We'll see which one he does want to keep. Rakdos' Return I like a lot from this particular deck that Smith is playing because it does have acceleration.
Yeah.
So even when it's on the draw, I think it can line up okay here.
Yeah, me too. Certainly just a very powerful card.
Looks like the only card that Sean's going to keep is a Gray Merchant. Gray Merchant's going to try to stabilize things. A little unsure of himself. As he looks like maybe he's keeping a removal spell. Like you see Lifebane Zombie go to the graveyard, so that's in his deck.
I kept the negate, so just banking on drawing something. So now the Ooze can grow to a 4/4 since he discarded 2 creatures off the return.
Smith sees that, so he says, eat that Lifebane Zombie. Is this lethal? I mean, it looks like it's lethal to me. We'll see if it's lethal for Sean in just a second. Yeah, that's going to do it. So Erik Smith is going to tie things up here against Sean McCafferty. Jund's Planeswalkers and Black Blue Devotion are going to a third game. If you're Erik, picking up that information of him discarding a negate, even though you may think it is in his deck,
it is nice to have confirmation,
yeah,
you know?
I think that's a big deal.
You see kind of a reversal in that game, too, where in the first game, Sean had the initiative. He was doing things with Packrat. It was very much Erik who was on the defensive and trying to stabilize behind, like, Nissa and a Satyr token, Sylvan Caryatid, whatever. But that game, Erik had the Ooze on turn 2, used that to deal, you know, a few useful points of damage, got in a big Rakdos' return, and then, yeah, he was able to just ride the Ooze that he played on turn 2 to victory.
Pretty straightforward stuff.
Yeah.
I do wonder if Sean goes back to the drawing board. One of the things I love to do is watch players sideboard for in between game 2 and game 3. Obviously, you're going to go to the sideboards for game 1 and game 2, but I don't think that's a place that players go to often enough.
Yeah, but after you die to a Scavenging Ooze and, you know, you just took out a bunch of removal, you might want to rethink your position. Like, I'm leaving myself wide open to, like, any random creature that stays alive could just deal me lethal damage.
I mean, he does have 3 copies of Devour Flesh. There are 2 Bio Blights. We know the Hero's Downfalls are going to stay for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
He's playing against a Planeswalkers deck. But I imagine, you know, in order to make room for those Lifebane Zombies, to make room for those Stain the Minds and those Negates, pretty easy to just board out Devour Flesh and Bio Blight and move on.
Yeah, and then you just kind of rely on your creatures to brick wall their creatures. But sometimes there's like a 4/4 Nissa land that is just bigger than your Night Veil Spectre and just gets to hit you over and over and over again.
And you can't really do anything about it.
Yeah.
Who do you think this matchup favors?
I think if Erik gets a draw like he did, where he has a turn 2 play, he has a read the bones to set himself up for future turns, and then constantly has things to do on subsequent turns, then he is favored. But it is pretty easy for the black deck to kind of like contain those draws also. I think it is just whoever like sticks a threat and gets to ride it.
Like, I imagine part of the reason that you play Jund Planeswalkers is because your matchup against Thoughtseize decks, whatever configuration of Mono Black Devotion is out there, is probably pretty good.
Yeah.
Or at least you believe that it's good.
Right, and I mean, that is the theory, but it is Black Devotion. They have Thoughtseize, they have Packrat. Those cards are incredibly powerful, and if Packrat is unanswered, it's very tough to win. So that deck can certainly just steal games, even if you are a favorite.
McCafferty is going to be on the play, and he's going to mulligan, so Smith is going to take a look at his hand. And it looks like he is happy enough. You can see on Nissa, there's a course over there, a couple of lands as well. So
an ultimate price too, which I think is very important. Just
bridge the gap.
Yeah, you know, just kind of slow Sean down. Make sure you have an answer to something like Packrat, Desecration Demon. Unfortunately, not Night Veil Spectre, but you know, what are you gonna do? Can't answer them all with a 2-mana removal spell.
Not anymore.
No.
Maybe like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But not anymore. Which I actually like that Magic has moved that direction. Like, you have to have the right removal spell for the right creatures.
Yeah, I think it is very cool that you see decks like this. 2 Dreadbore, 1 Price, 2 Downfall, 3 Mizzium Mortars, 2 Golgari Charms. It's like, you would think that one of those has to be better than the other, but that is not true just because they kill different things.
I remember being very stubborn about that. It's just like, look, your removal suite is wrong. And it's like, actually, it's not. It just has to be this way. A Thoughtseize is going to show 2 Swamps, a Hero's Downfall, a Lifebane Zombie, and the Stain the Mind. So Smith is going to write those down and figure out what he does want to take here. And what he takes will be pretty obvious about what he's scared of. You know, if he takes Hero's Downfall, I imagine that's because, hey, I've got like creatures, or I have Planeswalkers that I'd like to protect.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that he takes the Lifebane Zombie. It might be the card that I would take as well, but he has an ultimate price, so it's like, it's pretty easy to look at that and say like, oh, I can just price a zombie, but by doing this, then he still has price as a follow-up to whatever creature that Sean draws. And
I also think the reason he takes Zombie there is because he has Courser in his hand.
Okay, sure.
So, like, he's just going to be able to get his Courser. And do I think that Erik's going to be able to ride his Courser to a large advantage? No. I don't think that's the case. But the fact that he, like, doesn't get his Courser taken and then have to price that is, like, where he wants to be.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
Imagine.
It is kind of scary knowing that Sean is likely to name Nissa with Stain the Mind, and you leave him with that, knowing that you have a Nissa and he's on the play, so he's going to be able to get that before you play Nissa. But I do like the early exchange that was made.
Stopping round number 2 is drawn here for Smith. Smith has to be a little worried, you know, if he does lose his Nissa. I mean, he was able to overcome that last game, but yeah, okay. Rakdos return for 2. Well, there's negate, so we'll see if Sean draws the 5th land here. It's actually kind of a big draw this early in the game. Yeah, there's the 5th land. You see his hands Doomblade, Stay in the Mine, and a Swamp. Yeah, he might just go for Nissa. I mean, he might just go after Nissa right now with Stay in the Mine again.
Yeah, I think he has to. I mean, I think that is why you brought that card in, you know, that it just handles all the Nissas, you know, no fuss, no muss. Maybe you get one out of their hand.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Didn't cast it. That's a little too fancy for me. Yeah, that's a little too fancy. Like, because Erik's not going to play around another negate. That's just not a thing that's going to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's just going to cast the spells. He can't, like, you know, bob and weave or anything. And you have the open window to cast it. I'm very surprised that McCafferty didn't cast it that turn. And now Smith is able to make a 4-4. Now he's able to get to work. And the connections is a little slow to the party now. So that's basically Sean taking a turn off to get that deployed.
Yep.
And again, Smith knew about the Stay in the Mine, so I imagine he's a little surprised with that. Now he gets to attack for 8, and Nissa doesn't take long to close.
Yeah, it's like he knows that Stain is there, and he knows it is likely naming Nissa, so it doesn't really do him any good to hold it and like try and play around negate in that sense, so you might as well just jam it.
This is a Thoughtseize. He's going to Doomblade one of these lands now. I imagine Sean was thinking, I'd rather just activate Underworld connections.
Yeah, but now that I'm getting Thoughtseize, do I really want to lose this Doomblade?
So take down a land. McCafferty's going to draw a card. Let's see what he finds. Hero's Downfall to get that off of the table. Now, Smith kept his card on top of the Scry, and that's why.
Yeah. That's a good one to have. Now, still have the 4-4 land, this Satyr-making machine.
2-turn clock. Goes from 12 to 6, down to 5. Draws a Swamp off the Underworld connections, does McCafferty. And now that's a Desecration Demon, but we know how well Xenagos lines up against that.
Yeah.
So down to 4 he goes. Draws a card and extends the hand. Erik Smith is going to win this match over Sean McCafferty. 2-1. John Planeswalkers was on to 5-0, defeating Black Blue Devotion. But I feel like, truthfully, a misstep there for Sean on turn 5.
Yeah, I don't know.